Hey everybody, welcome to Firebase Fridays. Today we are going to be using Firebase hosting with GitHub Actions. So you probably know what Firebase hosting is, and you probably know what GitHub Actions are too. But GitHub Actions, if you don't know, are a way to do things when things happen on GitHub. That's right, you heard it here first. It's the way to do things when things happen. But seriously, though, with GitHub Actions, when you send in a pull request or you send in a commit, or so when something happens, it will allow you to run some compute. So let's build this thing. Let's deploy out to this site. Let's do all this sorts of amazing things. You run compute code or any type of build code on GitHub servers, and you can do lots and lots of magical things. And then one of the magical things that we are going to be doing today is we are going to create, well, I've already created the repo, but we're going to create a pull request. And then when that pull request gets created, we're going to create a preview channel. So a preview channel is a new-ish feature to Firebase hosting. And the way it works is that you have a site so you have your live site, which is the thing that you tend to consider your production site. That is your Firebase project.web.app. That's your live site. But sometimes you want to do a test version of the site. You're like, hey, we added this new feature, or we are just, restyling this little thing. And I want to test those changes just as if they would be if they were in production, but not yet in production. And that test site, that is what we call a preview channel. So GitHub Actions are a really nice place for preview channels, because if you have a pull request, that could be its own preview channel. So we have a way of syncing those up. So today, that is all what we're going to be covering. If you have comments, please drop them in the chat. And I'm going to be answering them throughout the whole session. This show is nothing without your comments. So let me know if you have questions, and just say hi, all those things. And so let's get started. I am going to start sharing my screen now. All right, so this right here is just VS Code, and it is nothing too crazy is going on. I have a Tailwind site. It is not, like I said, it's pretty bad, actually. I wanted to do more, but I didn't. I always say I'm going to do more, and then I don't do more. So effectively what we have going on here is we have Tailwind CSS, which, if you are familiar with Tailwind, it is a utility CSS framework. It's awesome. You should check it out. And it just allows you to do nice little styles, and it's different than Bootstrap, but it's really cool. I like it. And so we have to build our CSS, though, with Tailwind. So Tailwind allows us to customize, like, in this case, we're using Roboto for the body font, and we're using Rubik, which is a very underrated Google font, in my opinion, Rubik for the display font. And so what we want to do is we want to build this CSS with Tailwind, and then we publish out our site. So it's going to be part of the whole GitHub action thing. So let's go into how that works. So I run all of my build style commands with NPM scripts. I find it just to be easier to have like a spot to run all those in. So I run them in these NPM scripts. And right here, I'm just using post CSS, which is sort of the preferred way to build your Tailwind styles. Don't worry if you don't know post CSS is. Post CSS is just a way to build things with CSS. And so I actually want to switch this. I was doing things multiple ways. So we're going to get rid of this one. And so I have this build command. So when I run this build command, it's going to take all of these Tailwind styles, and it's because that doesn't make sense. That's not real CSS. And it's going to turn that into real CSS. That's all in this file right here. And that is what, and I want to do that when the site gets built. So on my local machine, that's easy enough to do. I can just pop open my terminal, and let's see here. And what I can do, if I bump this out of the way, is do an npm run build. And that calls this command right here. And then when it runs and takes its time to do so, it usually doesn't take this long, but I think when we're streaming, it will take this long. So yeah, it never takes this long, but live it will. So while that's building, I'm going to take a look at the comments. So hello, everybody. Nice to have everybody in the chat. Oh, hey, Ben. Thanks, Kevin, for telling me I got this. So now, okay, cool. We built. Awesome. So what we're going to do here is we are going to do a serve now. So what I want to do is I want to set this up with Firebase. So the first step in all of this is to set your project up with Firebase hosting. And we do that with the Firebase CLI. So in this case, you can see I have nothing set up with Firebase hosting. There's no Firebase.json, no .firebase RC. There's nothing. I'm going to do this all from scratch. I don't know why that means from scratch, but I felt like that means from scratch. All right, so what I'm going to do is I have Firebase CLI installed. If you don't have it installed, you can do an npmi-g firebase-tools. You can also install it locally too and use it through your new modules bin folder, which is what I usually prefer to do, but I'm going to do it globally today. And I'm going to write Firebase init, and I can do Firebase init and then go through like an interactive menu, or I can just go straight and do Firebase init hosting. Let me look how that is. Okay, if someone in the comments, let me know if this is too small. I can try to bump it up, but bumping up terminal text inside of VS Code is always a little weird. So let me know though if you can't read it. So it's going to say like, well, what project would you like to use? So I'm going to use an existing project, and then it's going to go through, and I have this one called Firebase, or Friday's Firebase, that is. And then it's going to ask me, what do I want to use as my public folder? And so I tend to name my public folder public because it just becomes the default here. But this is, for those of you who don't know what the public folder is, it's effectively what you are going to upload to Firebase hosting. So everything in that folder, it goes to Firebase hosting, unless you write an ignore command for it. It's a little more advanced, but if it's in the public folder, it gets uploaded. Like I don't want all my node modules in my public folder because those don't need to exist in there. I don't need my package.json. I don't need my Tailwind configs, my git ignore. So anything that needs to be the website lives in public. So this is very similar when you are dealing with Angular CLI, Vue CLI, Create React App, and Next and all that. They have their own build folders. The source code turns into website assets. That's your public folder. Some are called dist or out or build or stuff like that. So in this case, I'm just calling mine public. And then it's going to ask me, do I want to configure as a single page app? This is just one page. So technically it's a single page app by the strictest definition of the terms, but it is not a single page app in terms of like a JavaScript framework app where we just mess with the URL using browser push history to make everything feel like it's multiple pages, but it's not multiple pages. So I'm not going to do that for now, even though in this random case, it wouldn't affect anything. And then here's this question. This is like the question of the hour or 40 minutes or however long we're doing this today is, do I want to set up automatic builds and deploys with GitHub? Now, this is crazy because I said I was going to do that, but I'm not going to. I'm going to say no right now, and I'm going to show you why in just a second. So I'm saying no. It's going to ask me, do I want to write my public.index.html? No, I don't want to override it. And then boom. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at Firebase.json and Firebase RC before we set up with GitHub and some other magical things. So Firebase.json, we have our public folder. And then inside of public, it will ignore anything that looks like this because we aren't putting no modules in there. But if we accidentally did, we'd still not want to upload them because no modules, they are a force. Just they can be big. They can be very large, and that's a lot against your storage. I don't want to store no modules. Just don't want to do it. All right. So that is Firebase.json. Simple. I could have written this from scratch too and not gone through the wizard. And the same thing here is, okay, let's get out of that, is we have .firebase RC, and it's just a JSON file. And then we have this projects config. And then this part right here is default, and that's the name of the one we picked. And we could have different aliases for this, and like staging, prod, something. And then we're writing Firebase use, it looks at this Firebase RC and it switches to one of those aliases. So fun fact there. So what I want to do now is before we do anything, I'm going to just get like this local thing going. So like local development. I think that it's important always to make sure that your local development process is going good before you're sending it up to CI. So GitHub Actions is a great place to run CI. But if you have run CI before, especially setting up CI for the first time, it can be very frustrating because it's a different computer than your computer. So it's going to do different things that are very subtle and hard to debug. So you want to make sure that you're rock solid first before you go and try to do that same process on someone else's computer. So what I'm going to do is I want to be able to run this locally. And so a lot of you are probably familiar with running Firebase Serve to serve your website. We are moving away from Firebase Serve, and we're moving to a new command called Firebase Emulators Start. And that's because we have a whole emulator suite now where you can emulate Auth, Firestore, Cloud Functions, Cloud PubSub, real-time database, all these different Firebase services you can run locally on your machine, and hosting is the other one. And so if you do have more than one emulator set up, you don't want to run like Firebase Serve, and then I got to go run my Firebase Emulator Start my Cloud Functions one or this one. You can set all of this just with the Firebase Emulator Start command. So Firebase Serve will still work for you. We are just starting to recommend using this one instead. So #pro tip. So now I've started that, and see, it gives me this cool table of the emulators that are running. The only one I am running is Firebase hosting on localhost 5000. So let's take a sneak peek on how that works. All right, so let's go to, I'm going to switch this to localhost 5000, and I'm going to have to switch my screen to that. That allows me to cheat and see if it's working. Okay, so it is working. So I'm going to switch this now. Stop this one. Share over to, here we go. Share. And this is this beautiful website. It's killing me that this part is not aligned with this part. I didn't have enough time because it is right before I started, but it just hurts me. So let's pretend that that's not happening. But this is all this website is, but it's running on localhost 5000. So let's go and deploy it to a preview channel now. So I'm going to switch back to my VS Code. If I can remember how to do that again. All right, so stop this. All right. Who's ready to deploy on a Friday? I'm so excited to deploy on a Friday, but it's much easier when you don't really actually have to worry about what happens to the site. It's a bit of a pro tip there. All right, so share. All right, so now we're here, and I'm going to kill that local server. And now what we are going to do is we are going to, we've built our CSS, we have set up Firebase, and I'm going to show you what a preview channel does before we sync it up with GitHub. So the way preview channel, so you're used to probably writing Firebase deploy, maybe in Firebase deploy -- only hosting. In this case, this will deploy out Firebase hosting, but we want to deploy not to our, what is that? I'm on Fridays --Firebase. We want to deploy out to a preview channel. So to do that, I can say Firebase hosting : channel :deploy. And from here, there's actually multiple things you can do. You can create, you can list, all this cool stuff. Deploy will work as both create and deploy if it has not been created yet, which I don't think I will have in this case. So I'm going to say, call it test, or, I'm just going to call it test because why not? So it's going to be our test channel. So now it's going to go run. And let's see here. I got a little bit of an error, but I think that's my own fault. All right, so, and it doesn't matter in this case. So now we can see down here, I have this URL. It's Fridays --Firebase --test, because I called it test, and then a random hash.web.app. And it lets me know that it expires on the 11th of December it's pretty much a week from now. It will expire. So that's another great thing about preview channels, is that they are expirable. And so you can send out that new feature, test that new thing out, see if it's cool. And if you forget to delete it, it's okay. They automatically will delete themselves. So that is the really cool thing. So I'm going to copy this, and we're going to load it up in the browser to kind of prove that it exists, because proving things work is important. Thanks for the fire, Ben. I appreciate that. So now I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to share, stop screen. I really wish I could just like press a button. Just press a button and it would work. That would be great. Thank you for that, Tyler. I prefer that Firebase hosting be the Denver Nuggets of the. I'm just kidding. Let's see. Ben asks, can you create multiple preview channels or deploy to multiple channels? You can create lots and lots of preview channels. I don't remember what the number is, but it's a fair amount. And you can deploy. I don't know if you can do it with one command, but you can do it with a lot of commands. I think, but you can do it. It is possible. And the Firebase CLI also works as a node module. So you can actually require it, and it has like a nice programmatic interface. So in that world, you can do whatever you want to do. All right, so now here, you can see up here at the top, it's Fridays-Firebase. We're there. It's a preview. So now what I want to do is I want to set this up with GitHub. So I said no before. I didn't want to set up with GitHub, but now I do. So we've seen how preview channels work. We've seen how to set everything up, and we know just deeply well what's happening, how we're building with Tailwind, what projects we're hooked up to, all that stuff, our configuration, everything. We understand it. Let's boldly go to CI. I'm not going to lie. It's always intimidating setting up CI, just even in the privacy of my own, no one working with me. But now I'm live on the internet and I have to set up CI. It's kind of crazy, but we make this very easy on the Firebase side. So that's why I'm not super scared. So now let me go back to my VS Code. Okay, sweet. Here we are. Now, what I want to do is I want to get into a bigger screen here. Let's clear out. Let's bump this up just a little bit. That was too much. What was I doing? All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up with GitHub. The trick is when you're doing things live, you have to just keep saying what you're doing over and over again, not for the audience, but for yourself, because you just forget. Like what am I doing again? I am setting this up with GitHub. That's what's happening. So I'm going to say Firebase init hosting :GitHub. And I should have told you what that did. So Firebase init oh no, all this stuff's happening. All right, I just spoiled it. So we can just rewind. Let's just pretend none of that happened. So I said no to Firebase setting up GitHub when I said Firebase init hosting. And the reason why is because I know you can write Firebase init hosting :GitHub. And what this will do, and I actually wrote this, so I know what this does. At least I think I know what it does. But you never really know what you wrote, what it actually does. But in this case, Firebase init hosting :GitHub will just go to that wizard part of, do you want to set up the GitHub Actions? So if you have an existing Firebase hosting project and you're like, oh, I want to add, the stuff to it, you just type this command in and then it works. And so what this will do is we immediately went out to GitHub. I've already accepted permissions. And so what it does is it kicks off an OAuth flow. And that's why it's asking to do this. Even though I think this code, I should probably not be showing this live. But then it says, okay, great. That's all good. And now that I'm authorized, it's going to say which one do you want to set it up with. And so using your the fully qualified repository name, which is your username. I'm not David, I'm David East. / Firebase-Fridays. Is it Firebase Friday or Firebase Fridays? I need to make sure I get that right. It is Firebase Fridays. Okay, good. So now it's going to go out and it's going to go into the Google Cloud and it's going to create a service account. So GitHub Actions can deploy it on behalf of you securely. And then it's going to ask us, do you want to set up a workflow to run a build script before every deploy? And we do. Because we are running Tailwind. So we need to build before we can just deploy. We're not deploying purely static assets. Well, we are deploying purely static assets, but we are not working with purely static assets. We create these static assets from other artifacts like our Tailwind config. And it says, what should we do to do that? Well, you want to install that. And when you're running in CI, you run npm CI because that's what smart people have told me. And I have not looked into why. Someone said do it. And I was like, okay, I will. You are smart and I will listen to you. And that's how I did that. And then we run npm run build, which we've already set up. So that is the default and that works. And then it's going to say, hey, do you want to set up an automatic deployment to your live channel when a PR is merged? So this is a workflow that's like, hey, all right, we set up the PR, it created the preview channel, we reviewed the code, we fixed all the mistakes through code review, everything looks great, and then we merge, and then when that merge happens, it's going to kick off another action to take what gets merged into your main branch to your live site. So it's effectively taking from a staging site and deploying it into production. And so I'm going to say yes to that as well. So then it's going to say, hey, what is your main branch? Because not everyone's main branch is main. So we have to ask that. So I'm going to say main. And then we are almost done. So what this did was it created a .github folder. The .firebase folder is for when you deploy, because we only upload things that have not been deployed. We call it Delta upload because we upload the Delta. And then now we've created this .github/workflows folder, and that's what this whole init hosting :GitHub thing does, is it uploads secrets, but then it also creates these YAML files because GitHub Actions works off YAML files. And if you don't like working with YAML, well, we make that for you. So you don't have to do it. And it pretty much sets up all the things that Firebase hosting or all the things that GitHub Actions needs to do these deployments with Firebase hosting. The only thing we have to do now is send it off to GitHub. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do git checkout -b, and it's going to be like cool feature, even though there is no cool feature. And then I'm going to say git add, git commit, like CI time, and make sure that, all right, so that's all in there. And what we are going to do now is I'm going to do a git push. Oh, no, git push. Git push -u origin cool feature. It's going to go. That's the noise that the GitHub servers actually make. I don't know if you knew that or not. Really, once it gets to the GitHub servers, it goes. It's a true story. You don't have to fact check that. All right, so now I'm going to switch over. Oh, actually, I'll answer some questions now. All right. Let's see here. Oh, Ben, thanks for all the questions, Ben. Appreciate that. You, the real MVP. Ben says, how are secrets stored? Does it put them in GitHub secrets? It does. GitHub has like their secret store, or it's called like the secret environment. I don't really know. I call it the secret store. What happens is that's why we authenticate with GitHub, is we only check it for two things. So the first thing we do is we authenticate you to see if we can upload that. We upload your service account tokens, your secrets from your service account, to that, to a specific spot in there. And then also when you say what site you want to set up your GitHub action with, or repository you want to set up your GitHub action with, we check GitHub to make sure that you are you have the right admin rights to do that. So when you try to deploy, things don't break and go crazy. So those are the only two things we tap into GitHub. And every time that you set this up, you have to re-authenticate as well. So we try not to hold on to any information like locally, even as much as we can, because we don't want that type of responsibility. And Leon says, does this work when you have multiple sites in a Firebase project? Yes, it does work with multi-site. There is a bit of a difference deploying syntax, I believe, with that. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I can try to find a link for that. Leon, you should hit me up on Twitter _David East. And I would like to send you that link or try to figure that out. So it does work with that, but that's a great question. All right, so what was I going to do? Okay, now I'm going to go share GitHub. Let's share GitHub. So going into my here, so this is the preview channel site. Let's switch over to GitHub. So GitHub's going to be really helpful, and GitHub's like, hey, you just pushed this cool feature up. So I'm going to compare a pull request, and it's called CI time. And when we create this pull request, yep, magic is going to happen here in just a minute. It's going to discover that, yep, there we go. Oops, I got too eager. It's going to say, hey, look, I noticed that you have some YAML files, and we're going to start these GitHub actions from that. So, or this GitHub action one in this case, where it's going to deploy to Firebase hosting on PR, build and preview, and it's queued waiting to run. And so if we click into this, we can watch GitHub's runner take place. Which, by the way, I'm always happy to plug the Firebase podcast, which I host. I did a full, super detailed episode, maybe even too detailed episode, on how this whole process works, through the guts of the source code and stuff. So if you look at this and you're like, wow, I want to know even more about this, you can listen to that whole podcast. It's all after I collaborated with a few other of my colleagues on implementing the GitHub action and the CLI for this. I just went and I wrote all my knowledge out, mostly so I wouldn't forget it. So we can see it's going through the steps. We did our good npm CI and npm run build. We can even click into there. It's probably going to tell us, hey, look, we did your Tailwind build. If my computer will do anything, it's having a hard time doing things. Or maybe just GitHub has nothing to tell us here. But usually it tells you something. All right, cool. It says we've completed the job. So if we come back here, not commits conversation, look at that. We got this little bot from GitHub Actions, and it says, hey, visit the preview URL for this PR. And this part right here is super important. If there's one thing that you should know, other than how to set this up, is what is going on with this line. So it's giving us our generated preview channel URL, but it's doing it for this commit. So for this one commit I called CI time. If I go back and I make another commit, it's going to run this again, and it's not going to create another URL. The URL is named after the branch itself, or the pull request, so cool feature. And so that's why it's PR1, because it's the first PR sent to this repository, cool feature, and then this random hash. And so that's how it gets generated. It follows that formula. But we don't generate a new URL for every commit. We do it for every pull request, because most of the time that's not what you need. You're collaborating so the pull request per site, and then when you update it, you don't want all these different URLs hanging around. If you do want that behavior, then you probably need to run something a little more manually than that. Let me know if you need that behavior. It's interesting behavior, but be interested to see if you need it. And so yeah, you can go and view this now. So if I command click out here, boom, look at that. This is all set up. And since we said yes to the merge to our live site, when I click merge pull request, this is going to go boom. See, that's another thing you probably didn't know, is that in the GitHub servers, when you click merge, the servers, they go boom. It's true. It's a real story. You can ask anybody who works at GitHub. Those are the noises that happen. But now that we can go check out actions, we can see we have this one running, and it's like, woo, look, it's because it's going to be deploying to our Fridays-Firebase. So if I removed all of this stuff right here, I don't think I've deployed out to this yet, so it's site not found. But once this finishes going, it will have our production live site will be out there, and it all happened in a nice CI workflow. And even though CI is frustrating and crazy to set up, that was easy to do because of how much is automated for you. There's so many tweaking of configuration files, YAML files, all this crazy stuff. With the CLI, if you follow those steps, you really avoid all that pain, because we hit that pain first, and we corrected those mistakes, and we try to set everything up to not run into any of those problems. That's why the tokens get uploaded the way they do. That's why the config files are doing all the right stuff, and the steps are all in the right order. And I was just stalling for time until it finally deployed. And now that when I refresh, boom, it just merged out to our production site. And so that is how you deploy on a Friday and set up CI on a Friday. That is something in real life you should probably never do. But that's how you set up CI and deploy out on a Friday, all nice and easy. So that is my Firebase Friday sort of demo for you today. Now, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer it, but it's Friday. So let's see here. We got some hard-hitting questions in the chat. I can just see them ahead. Eduardo asked, GCP, CI/CD pipeline versus GitHub Actions, pros and cons. Oh, that's interesting. So I think that I'm not a pro at either. I have used both, but I'm not a pro at either. So I can't definitively answer. I think that GCP, so Cloud Build, I think you're referring to, it has lots of crazy knobs and things, and you upload Docker images and lots of crazy stuff to it. It's a machine. It can do really cool things. And I feel like that is, and I don't know if you can put up Docker images and GitHub Actions and stuff. I know you can do your own runners and stuff. GitHub Actions is really good when you're just doing things like if this, then that within GitHub. So I really like GitHub Actions for that. Cloud Build, I think, is focused on a world, all on its own outside of GitHub and stuff, but can still work with GitHub. I don't know. I don't know enough. That was me just rambling on my response. I hope that was helpful, Eduardo. Ben asks, will Firebase help James Harden feel confident in the Rockets' chances for a championship this year? That's a really great question, Ben. So I think that James Harden doesn't need any confidence booster at all. I think that they might be more focused on helping John Wall, because John Wall, it's been like 2 years since John Wall's played basketball. So Firebase doesn't really help a lot with like on-court helping Harden play more off-ball. But I don't know, maybe we create an app for that. I don't know, I have to see. There's no official NBA sponsorship between Firebase and the NBA, so this is all just me messing around. And then Ben says, will the Suns be better than the Jazz this year, this season in the NBA? Is Tyler still in the chat? Because if so, that would be, let's see, the Suns be better than the Jazz this year. It's hard to say. It depends on injury. It's a new season coming up. So we don't, it's going to be tough to say. Leon says, it would be great to see how this works together in NX. Oh yeah, I agree with that. I've not messed with Narwhal, NX, and CI yet. I've heard great things. Jeff Cross is a good friend of mine from way back in the day. We co-wrote Angular Fire together. He might say he fully wrote it, but it's not true. We co-wrote it. Yeah, I would love to try out NX. I've been really meaning to do that. Dominic, thank you. Thank you for watching. I'm glad this is exactly what you were looking for. That's exactly what I went for. Leon says, oh, you can do custom Docker images in GitHub Actions. See, I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, see, I'm going to look at more into what the difference is now. So, Eduardo, you have challenged me to learn more on a Friday, no less. Tyler says, yes. Tyler is still here. Tyler thinks the Suns are better than the Jazz. Ooh, all this crazy stuff is going on. Okay, well, I just ripped through all the questions. I don't want this to go too long on Vinesh has one more. Will the 10,000 limits be? I don't know which limits Vinesh. I would love to. I'm not sure what that exactly refers to, but I could just be optimistic and be like, yes, they will be removed. I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to. But I think that is all I have time for today. I'm just trying to keep this one. Oh, 10,000 rights. I assume that you mean on the free tier, or 10,000 number of rights, like per what? You know what, Vinesh, you just send me, I got to end this video. So @_David East on Twitter, super happy to answer things and keep the conversation going afterwards. If any of you have any questions and want more per second. Yeah, that's going to be a longer one. So let's _David East on Twitter, Vinesh. Let's talk. So if any of you have any questions or you just want to talk, it's Friday. Let's chill. Firebase Fridays. Thank you all for coming out, and I will see you next week. Let me know what to do. I don't have anything planned. I'm thinking security rules, hacking things and then securing them. Let me know. What do you think? Hit me up. All right. I will see you all next Friday.